Really interesting information in politics. This new Congress has gotten attention as the Republicans took charge. But November's elections are reshaping power in states around the nation, with Democrats actually riding a wave to take control of many state houses that the GOP had ruled for many years. It's actually a wider indicator as Dems govern more Americans right now, since these new state governments were sworn in this month, at the state level than Republicans. So take Michigan, where Democrats won the Senate and House for the first time since 1984.
It was an historic election night and some historic results.
Here's where things stand tonight. Democrats swept the top of the ticket.
Michigan's future is bright, and we are about to step on the accelerator.
For the first time in 40 years, Democrats have control of both chambers.
More than 100 years after the first woman was elected to serve in the state Senate, that same chamber has selected its first woman majority leader.
In Michigan, we have lots of seats at the table, so it's very gratifying to be part of that.
You can see all that big news there, local news coverage, and there's a lot more to this story, which could actually shape future campaigns and shows the state of our democracy. It's why we invited Michael Moore on tonight, because while the power did flip here in 2022, Democrats had already won a majority in that state of Michigan several times. But they, and really the voters' will, was blocked. Now, this is a striking story. It has many people wondering if a state like Michigan has a democracy at all. Let me show you exactly what I mean, and we're going to get into why this matters. But if you actually look at this, it's kind of wild. It's like an article you'd forward or that would go viral. So let's start. In 2012, a majority votes for Democrats for the Michigan House. But Republicans held control. Okay, let's look at 2014. Most voters go blue. Majority for Democrats, but the same thing happens. Republicans hold government there. Now, in 2016, you may recall the Trump wave. Voters in Michigan go for Republicans, and they hold the House. Now, in 2018, blue again, but the state House stays red. Same in 2020. There you have most voters go blue, but the state House in 2020 stayed Republican. Now, let me tell you about this. That is, we're going to get back to 22, but several elections in a row. What you see there, Republicans win, Republicans hold the House. Democrats win, Republicans hold the House almost every time. Now, that is just repeating over and over a thing where people go and vote and then you have an undemocratic outcome. The majority will thwart it. Now, we'll show this up for you again because, again, we've done some work to pull all these numbers. The 2022 you see at the bottom is the only time where you have a blue check and then you actually have a blue state House. That's a lot of times. That's a big state. That's the reality for millions of people. This is wild, even if this is new to you. Even if you don't live in Michigan, I'm going to tell you why it's relevant, but this may not always be national news, but it's the context for so many election headlines that you see here where Democrats win more votes in America and then Republicans hold power and hold government.
November 9th, many Democrats and Democratic supporters woke up to the reality of an election cycle that went in a way decidedly different from what they had hoped.
Republicans go back into the legislature with an even bigger margin in the state House.
It's time to accelerate and go even faster and get more done to reinvent our state.
Protesters gathered outside Michigan State Capitol on Wednesday to speak out against what some say is a last-minute power grab by Republican lawmakers. Republican lawmakers also took the final steps to try to restrict minimum wage and sick leave laws.
There's that old chant, this is what democracy looks like. But if you're in Michigan there year after year, you're thinking, if this is what democracy looks like, what's the point in voting? Which, of course, is not my main takeaway here, but you could understand people feeling that way. And you hear the media coverage, and I'm not actually just blaming them because they're reporting on the news, which is, hey, the House is Republican. But if you live in that environment, you might start to think Republicans were winning those elections, which they weren't, except for 16, which I mentioned. So what's happening? Well, a big factor is something we've covered before, legal cheating. Michigan Republicans were drawing voting districts skewed towards their own party, which proved to be effective. Both parties have done this, I should mention, although computer modeling makes it more effective, and Republicans have pushed the envelope farther lately. That's documented. Then in 2021, there was actually a break from that partisan approach, an independent commission that voters pushed in a ballot measure to end this legal cheating, which created maps that were more fair. And then the Democratic wins translated into actual Democratic power. Now, the point here is not what helps a single party. The point is what happens when we have majority rule instead of all the different ways that America continues to lean back to its original sin, because we have not always been a democracy. We were founded as a white supremacist oligarchy, and that's not an opinion. That's just the news guy referencing real world history. And we have these mechanisms, these atavistic tendencies in our political culture where people lean back to do more minority rule. And while I mentioned that sometimes both parties have done this, to be clear, it is the Republican Party, both in Michigan and nationally in the Electoral College, that is having trouble building majorities and is leaning into these sometimes legal but very unfair types of gerrymandering and legal cheating, and sometimes illegal cheating, in America today.